We shall now chant the Shanti mantra. At the end of our chanting, there will be 3 Oms. After the 3 Oms, we invite everybody to join in to sing 3 times with us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace be to the heavens, peace the mid-region, peace the earth, peace the waters. May the living plants be peace, the great trees be peace. May the all gods be peace. May Brahma, the Supreme, be peace. May all be peace. May peace be peace. May that peace come to us.
Shanti Prithvi Shanti Rapah Shanti Roshadayah Shanti Vanaspatayah Shanti Vishve Devah Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Yoga Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Apa Shanti Oshadayah Shanti वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्विश्वे देवाः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिः सर्वम् शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्ति 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 श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम श्रीमीरा शरणं मम श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम श्रीमीरा शरणं मम श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम श्रीमीरा शरणं मम श्रीमीरा शरणं मम
We're asking Toshi Amagasu, the great grandson of George Nakashima, to light the candle. One more time. The feeling. Try again. Auroville doesn't always get it right the first time.
Carol, do you know where to turn off the fans? Anybody see the fans switch on?
Backside, you want to do backside?
There, yes. Just turn It's a very thick wick, so it takes time. Now it's good because the fan is on.
And now we invite Miriam Bella from the Nakashima Foundation Board to give a blessing.
So I'm going to ask us all in deepest gratitude and humility, let us breathe out any distraction we may have at this moment. And let us breathe in, and you may wish to close your eyes if you want. It be a kind of meditation, a concentration. And let us breathe in the beauty and the unity and the peace that is permeating this hall. Please rest in this moment. As the Mother has said, feel the peace, live the peace, know the peace. The peace, the peace, the peace. Please concentrate on this vibration. As you breathe in and out with the golden light, please be peace. Be the peace. And as your psychic being is expanding throughout your whole body, carrying this vibration of peace into your very cellular consciousness. Nakashima felt that each sacred peace table would be a token, a symbol of man's aspiration for a creative and beautiful peace. So please send this golden light of peace around the world, around the earth in a clockwise direction, connecting all the sacred peace tables here in New York City and Moscow. And also let us have this peace, this golden light radiating out to all the peoples of the world. To the birds and the sky, to horses running wild, to fish in the waters, to the forests of old growth trees, to the big cats stalking on the savannas, and to fields of flowers. For as Sri Aurobindo has said in solitude, I'd like to quote this, thrilled with the hidden transcendence is joy and peace. There was no more division's endless scroll, but one grew the Spirit's secret unity.
Richard Pearson from the Sri Aurobindo Ashram.
Friends, I would like to take over from Miriam's last sentence on oneness. It is an extract taken from Savitri. Many of you have read it several times. Here it is. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love caught all into a certain immense embrace. Existence found its truth on oneness breast, and each became the self and space of all. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. To plead, to feel, was a plain discovery of God. All mind was a single harp of many strings. All life a song of many meeting lives. The worlds were many, but the self was one. Then, from the trance of that tremendous clasp, and the throbbings of that single heart, and from the naked spirit's victory, a new and marvelous creation rose. There were no contraries, no sundered paths. All thy spiritual links were joined to all, and bound indissolubly to one. Each was unique, it took all lives as its own, and following out the turns of the infinite, recognizing himself the universe. None is apart. None lived for himself alone. Each lived for God in him and God in all. There was no sob of suffering anywhere. Experience ran from point to point of joy. All turned to all without reserves recall. A single ecstasy without a break. Love was a close and thrilled identity in the throbbing heart of all that luminous life.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Julian Mines, and besides serving Auroville, I'm also on the board of the Nakashima Foundation for Peace. And I'm so grateful that our friends from the Auroville ashram, especially Gauri Pinto, whose father was so close to George Nakashima, can join us. That Ambassador Chinmay Garakan, who served at the United Nations, and also Ambassador Vinay Verma, who served at the United Nations. We have a very distinguished audience and a number of dear friends. We would like to ask Astor Patel, on behalf of the Auroville Foundation Board, to read a message from Dr. Karan Singh and to say a few words of welcome.
Friends, it is delightfully warm and beautiful, the dynamic gathering at the inauguration. Friends, on this occasion of the inauguration of the Hall of Peace, around the peace table which Meera brought here in 96, crafted by her father George Nakashima. It's been a very special dynamic occasion for all of us. And Dr. Karan Singh, who is the chairman of the Auroville Foundation and been closely associated with this entire work, has sent a message which is supported and greatly joined by all the members of the board and his colleagues. He says, the Nakashima Sacred Peace Table arrived in Auroville in 1996 during my first term as chairman. It is a matter of great satisfaction that it will now be installed in the new wing of the Unity Pavilion. The table is a symbol of peace and harmony, and it is appropriate that it should have a suitable location. On this occasion, I send my warm greetings to all those connected with the Unity Pavilion and congratulate them on this important event. I'm sure he is with us in some way.
We'd like to invite our architect of this beautiful space, Piero, to say a few words.
In 1968, when we landed in Auroville, one of the most moving experiences for myself and Gloria as architects was our first visit of Golconda. As many of us know, the Golconda is a building of the ashram in Pondicherry. We were told that one architect of Japanese origin has been the guide of the construction and more generally the designer of the details. I felt immediately an inner connection with this unknown architect, and as it happened, I was to vividly remember Golconda when we started to build the Matrimondier at the end of 1971. Few years later, as a magic, Nakashima in person appeared. It was the first of several visits. He usually was not speaking much, but most important for us, he was showing deep interest and appreciation for the work we were doing. And a few years later, in the 80s, we had the privilege to meet him again at his beautiful place in Pennsylvania. And again, he was asking about the construction of maternal deer. I felt again to have with him the strong inner connection experienced during my first visit to Golconda. We are very thankful to Mira for continuing his work, for having materially manifested this third altar of peace, and for having accepted the suggestion to place it in Auroville, India, for Asia, and eventually here in this place. As you can see, this small hall is directly linked with the Unity Pavilion. Maybe there is a symbolic reason. Human unity cannot be achieved without peace, nor peace without human unity. And to end, to really appreciate this wonderful table and understand why it is so inspiring, I wish to read few of the poetic writing published by Mira and written by George Nakashima. I'm quoting. It is a moving experience to walk through the forest alone, to recognize each tree as a divine body, to pass in its presence day after day with a growing understanding. My relationship to furniture and construction is basically my dialogue with the tree, with a complete and psychic empathy. We work this material to fulfill the yearning of nature to find its destiny, to give this absolute inanimate object a second life, to realize its richness, its beauty, to read its history and its life. Time spent by a true craftsman in bringing out the grain which has long been imprisoned in the trunk of the tree is an act of creation in itself. He passes his hand over the satiny texture and finds God within.
Thank you, Peter. Through Rita Garakhan, the friendship with Miriam, we're happy to welcome the president of the Indira Gandhi Center for the Arts in Delhi, Chinmay Garakhan, who will say a few words.
Friends, my wife Rita and I are truly blessed to be present on this very auspicious occasion of the dedication of the Table of Peace. What a great idea, what a great concept this is. Peace table. 6 of them in 6 continents of the world. Emitting the same message of universal brotherhood, peace, unity, love, harmony, affection. I was asking myself, how come that this sacred table, which has been here for the last 17 years, had to wait till today to be dedicated to peace around the globe? I think the answer is very simple. The table was waiting for me and my wife. While we may laugh at this, I think there is something to it. Because nothing ever happens by chance. Nothing in life ever happens by accident. Everything is pre-planned. We all know by whom. So whatever I am saying now, to all of you, to all of us, it's not that it is me who is speaking, but as we all know, to all of us, it is God alone who speaks. And He gives us, or she gives us, in today's world, you can't presume that God is a He, gives us the courage, the incentive, the inspiration to say what we say. And if you permit me just one more minute, I was just thinking, the three of the greatest souls of India were born within few years of each other. Mahatma Gandhi in 1869, Sri Aurobindo in 1872, if I'm not mistaken, and Rabindranath Tagore, few years later. Each one of them was a revolutionary in his own right. Each one of them was a great philosopher in his own right. And each one of them believed strongly in the service to humanity. So what a blessed country we are, that we had these three souls born within years of one another, and went on to contribute to our national life and to international life, and left this earthly abode also within a few years of each other. So I'm deeply, deeply honored to be here on this very auspicious occasion. And I, again, for everything that happens, there is what we call a nimitta. There has to be a nimitta. There has to be a cause, an agency or an individual which makes things happen for us. And I think for us it was Miriam, our friend for many years in New York. She was coming here and she suggested why not we team up here together. So she was our nimitta, our instrument, the cause which brought us here, and we are very grateful to them. We are grateful to you and to the birthday girl of today, Mira, for giving us this opportunity to be present on this extremely auspicious, sacred, and a very loving and spiritual occasion. Thank you very much.
I asked Carol to come and stand at the head of the peace table. We are making a little experiment. Those of you who can barely hear us outside, we're trying to stream via the internet around the world, so people can barely see us unless we stand here. So, remind you.
Dear Mira and John, dear members of the Nakashima family, dear members of the Nakashima Foundation, honored guests, friends. I was asked by Julian to tell you something about the history of the peace tables, and that's a long story. But I begin with the beginning, which started this morning when I was reading a conversation with the mother. And that was a conversation she had with the children of the ashram. And I found the following. For one who knows how to see behind appearances, she said, there is hidden at the center of this matter, at the center of each atom of matter, there is hidden the supreme divine reality working from within, gradually, to change this inert matter into something that's expressive, to be able to reveal the spirit within. That sentence stayed with me today when I was thinking of the work of George Nakashima, that famous American-Japanese woodworker who felt able to relate to the soul of a tree with a sense, and so find the best use for each piece of wood that he would want to turn into furniture. That essence, said George, was peace. Something like the atmosphere he was used to find in the Sri Aurobindo ashram where he was living in the late 1930s with Golconda. For George, each piece of furniture that left his workshop was an object for peace. And such objects, he said, would slowly but unstoppably radiate their essence out into the environment. How he came to Golconda is a story by itself. In brief, he was sent there by Antonin Raymond, who had been working on the Imperial Hotel, which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And Antonin decided to remain in Japan when that assignment was over. When Antonin obtained the project to build a Golconda in the Sri Aurobindo ashram, George volunteered to supervise the design and the construction. Soon he was drawn to Sri Aurobindo's teachings, and he felt that he was, as he said, receiving far more than he was able to give. And what he received was the answer to all his searches, which were finally conferring meaning to his life. He became a member of the Sri Aurobindo ashram, and Sri Aurobindo gave him the Sanskrit name of Sundarananda, which translates as lover of beauty, one who delights in beauty. Of his life there he says, I quote, in a sense, I participated in life at the Sri Aurobindo ashram during its golden age, and all the disciples were in close touch with both the mother and Sri Aurobindo. It was, in a way, an ideal existence on earth, without a trace of rancor or harsh words, arguments, egotism, but was all in concert in search of a divine consciousness. The way of life, he said, was perhaps as close to heaven on earth as possible. Golconda he described as something of a do-it-yourself project. George acted as a designer and a general contractor, providing the architectural drawings, arranging for construction equipment, and designing the furniture. And there you see the beginning. The chairs, the benches, the tables were fashioned from very great timber squares, sometimes 2 by 2 feet, and they were sawn by hand with a pit saw, which requires 2 men, one stands on top of the block, and the other one is below on the tip, and together they move the saw up and down. Often it would take half a day to cut one shelf. Furniture making in Pondicherry, he said, was a very elemental baptism in the craft of woodworking. However, in 1939, with the Second World War imminent, George felt he needed to leave the security of the ashram and venture back into the world. As with all major questions, the mother had the final say as to what the future would be. And he writes, when I finally decided that I wanted to leave, I asked for her permission. She wrote her answer in the center of a sheet of paper, yes, in letters so small that I could barely read them. He went back to the USA via Japan and subsequently married. But after the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941, he, along with his wife and daughter, were incarcerated in a concentration camp in Idaho. Yet that seeming calamity was a blessing in disguise, for in those harsh conditions, he met a fine Japanese carpenter trained in Japan along traditional lines, and they joined forces. And later he would move from the west coast to the east coast to a farm which was owned by Antonin Raymond and somewhere in Pennsylvania, and that was the start of New Hope. George only came back to Auroville shortly before the mother's passing. And I was told that she looked at him and said, Sundarananda, you have come back. We knew you would come back, for she had never forgotten him. Welcome back to the peace tables. When we talk about altars of peace or peace tables, peace is, in a sense, what they are supposed to communicate. The idea to create altars of peace where people from all religions and faiths can gather together in silent concentration came to George in 1984, when he had the opportunity to purchase a pair of the largest and what he said, the finest walnut logs he had ever seen, the richly grained rare timber of 200-300-year-old eastern black walnut trees. trees were huge and an extraordinarily rare phenomenon in the state of New York. Something, said George, which occurs perhaps once in a lifetime. He felt that these trees had to be used in their full length and width, and so the idea came to fashion from them the altars of peace, each measuring approximately 4 by 4 meter and about 75 centimeters thick, to fully express the texture, natural shape, and free edges of the wood. The project, as said, was started in 1984, and the first altar was designated in New York, in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, with a concert for peace which was conducted by Leonard Bernstein, and the presence of diplomats of many countries and representatives of many faiths. The second table came to the same cathedral 9 years later to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations in 1995. It then went to The Hague in the Netherlands, where it served as a unifying presence at The Hague Appeal for Peace, and where young Greek and Turkish Cypriots signed the peace agreement on that table. 2 years later, in June 2001, it came to reside as the Peace Table for Europe in Moscow, in the Russian Academy for Art. This room is now a permanent monument to peace and human unity. And recently, on the 10th of June 26, 2011, the 10th anniversary of its installation was celebrated, and George was honored posthumously with an honorary degree of the Academy of Arts, something which the Academy had never done before. In those same years, the work had started to get the third peace table, the Peace Table for Asia, to come to Auroville. Kiro wrote to the working committee in 1991. Ida and I got involved 1 year later, but it took till the end of 1995 before a formal request for the donation of this table were made, both from Auroville as well as by Dr. Karan Singh, the chairman of the governing board. The Nakashima Foundation responded positively and agreed to donate both the table and the transportation cost. And so the third table for peace was placed in Auroville on the 29th of February 1996, the day which was called by the mother the Golden Day. On this day in 1956, the manifestation of the supernatural took place upon earth. This table too was late in finding a permanent home. Initially, it was intended to be the focal point of Auroville's town hall. That project failed. Other ideas came up, they also failed. Meanwhile, awaiting its final location, the Center for Indian Culture was so kind to host it for quite a number of years. Then it was moved to the House of Mother's agenda for some time and then found a place here in the Unity Pavilion, waiting for the finishing of this Hall of Peace, almost 80 years after it arrived in Auroville. And now its true function can start, and to serve as a focal point for conflict resolution in all its many forms. The Nakashima Foundation for Peace has now started fundraising for the fourth peace table, the Peace Table for Africa, which will be housed in the peace room of the still to be constructed Desmond Tutu Center for Peace in Cape Town, in South Africa. And that leaves the fifth and the sixth peace altars. Their location in South America and Australia is still to be found. The locks are there, even larger than those you see here today. Anybody visiting New Hope can see them standing there and awaiting their time. But the Nakashima Foundation is not limited in its vision to place peace tables only in each of the 6 continents. Research has been done to find a location for mini peace tables in countries such as Israel, it was unsuccessful, and in Japan, which had granted George the title of National Treasure. That search sadly also failed. But one has been installed in quite an unexpected place. In the White House, in the personal quarters of President Barack Obama and his family. Ida and John, when I first met you in 1992, and broached the topic of placing the peace table for Asia in Auroville, I had no idea that the road to find a permanent location would be so long. But I'm happy that we have now been successful. Thank you.
Shivaya.
I have been involved in the very practical aspect of this adventure.
I have been with Jaya together, putting all these bricks together and creating it bit by bit, with all the workers together naturally, and Piero on the head. But I today want to express my gratitude, our gratitude, to the people who gave me and Jaya the courage to start with this daunting job. As we started to do some fundraising, and then two people came forward and helped us right away. One of them is Jan Lohmann, and many of us remember him. He was a very simple man in a way, but he was so caring that he really supported me not only with funds, but came here and helped me fundraising. He was usually to be seen in Auroville on his cycle, going from one location to the other. And I was very, very touched by him with his dedication to Mother and to this cause. The second person is a donor from Russia. His name is Ruslan Bayramov. He saw the importance of this and right away donated $20,000. With these two people, and thanks to these two people, I started when Jaya was back from Sweden. We started right away because Jan said to me, if you don't start, money won't flow. And it was very little we had in hand. And as I said already, the job was kind of scary in a way. At that time, we didn't have the funds allocated for the Unity Pavilion. So it was really placing these pillars first, knowing it had to be manifested. Afterwards, I would like to also thank Julian. Julian has been a wonderful pillar in this task. He has been always encouraging, fundraising, supporting, looking, whatever. Thank you very much. And then Billy Carroll. Carroll has now with us together brought this to a successful end. I mean, it's not that there were many other people, but these four people were the pillars of the adventure in this way. The ABIs have always been supportive and caring. That is there. It's like a family, a support family. I also should mention, I forgot this. One important foundation is the Stichting Orofonds. Actually, it's thanks to those funds that we could finish this building now. So, as I'm a practical person, I'm continuing with Jaya. She will do more.
Yes, we have a lot of people to thank. I don't know when first. I don't know if we call them people, but they are in our hearts. They are the reason why we have been doing this work, and they have been holding it, and they've been doing it for us. Shivaya did a lot of big thank yous. When I look in this room, I was sitting here, and it reminded me very much of the card that Shivaya did early in the fundraising. Because it actually looked exactly the way that card, but you can see there are still a few copies. As I look around, I see Sue here, very, very beginnings. I see Kailash, who has been a mentor and supporter, and Richard. I see Pierre, who actually was the one who first said, why don't we put the peace table in the Unity Pavilion? So there is a lot of people who have been supporting over this year. I feel that one person who's not here, but I know he's here in spirit, is Kirit Joshi, without whom this complex of Unity Pavilion would not be here at all. That was a person who understood and brought it into the focus of the government also. So, yes, then I'm going to be more focused now. We have to thank Pierre and Gloria, Vijay, who was the contractor, Maestri Kanan, our Kanan who works with us, all the other masons, Ben, Ganesh, the carpenters, the people who work in our unity pavilion, who has been standing all this noise intensively these last weeks. This is on months, actually. This is people we have to. I have to thank all of you for being here. I have to thank all the people who have been helping today to make this such a wonderful, amazing event with what you're going to have to eat after, with the flowers, with the music, with everything. So I can't say thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We'd like to hear from Gordon Corstage from the Foundation for World Education.
Thanks, Julian. Some of you may remember a woman named Cyril Sochin, who used to work at the Matrimondier. And she's a wonderful inspiration still. Well, in her later years, Cyril lived in a community called Baja Grande in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Colorado. And what was the name of the particular mountain that there was? In any case, the community was founded on a sacred mountain for Native Americans. And it's where tribes who would normally might be fighting each other would come on different occasions, and they would cook together, and they would tell stories, and they would put aside all their differences. So in the spirit of Cyril, I would like to hope that the many tribes of the Indigo Yoga, and we know there are quite a few, will be able to come to this space, put aside their differences, and sit around the table and tell stories and maybe drink tea.
Thank you, Gordon. Representing the Nakashima family, we actually have a number of members present, including Kevin Nakashima, Mira's brother. We have Ru Nakashima, her son, his wife Sumi, and you met Toshi briefly, lighting the candle. And right now, we'd like to ask Mira herself to come and say a few words.
Julian, I can't thank you enough for making this all happen, and for Carol for pushing this through so many years ago, and for all of you who have brought this to fruition. Where is Carol? Carol? There you are. Carol is there. But for making such a beautiful space for this peace table who came so long ago and finally has a permanent home. It's a wonderful thing. I just wanted to go over a little of the chronology for the tables. I think the first important date was in 1938 when Sri Aurobindo gave my father the name Sundarananda. And the beginning of the Peace Altar Dream, I think, came directly from the mother of Sri Aurobindo. And that was in 1984, which is 30 years ago. And in 1986, which is 28 years ago, the first peace altar was made for the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City. And at that time, Dad was also trying to negotiate a peace altar to go to Russia. But it wasn't until later that we sent the table to Russia. My father died in 1990, which is 14 years ago, 24 years ago now. And we had an interfaith memorial service at the Cathedral in New York, and celebrated by James Parks Morton and the Reverend Edo Tai Shimano of the New York Zen Center. As we were hoping to place this second peace altar in Russia, We built one in 1995 at Julian's suggestion to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the UN, and it was too big to stay there until it got to where it was supposed to go. So it came back to the Nakashima Arts Building, which is now the home of our foundation. And in 1999, the altar became the centerpiece for the Hague Appeal for Peace, and it was put into storage, where it remained until its installation and dedication at Moscow's newly renovated Academy of Arts in June of 2001 at the invitation of Turatelli. And as somebody also mentioned, we connected the 3 existing peace tables in 2011 when my brother and I were coming back from our and my husband John were coming back from our trip on the Trans-Siberian Railway. And that was thanks to Irene Goldman, who has been a very influential member of our foundation as well. While we were fundraising and trying to find a place in Russia, the academician Sergei Kapitsa said, "Peace is what we need, what we all pray for. That's why the lofty symbol of the table as a spiritual crossroad, a meeting point, makes more sense than ever. Mutual understanding between people and generations, parents and children, tribes and confessions, is what really matters. The table is a remarkable work of art and craftsmanship, which sends a message of global significance, transcending borders and speaking in a universal language of its own." And 4 of us had the good fortune of spending the last few days in Golconde, which is the building that my father helped to build from 1936 to 39. And there was a little booklet on the desk giving me directions, giving all of us directions on how to live in Golconde and not break all the rules. But it was very apropos, I think, also to the peace table. And Sri Aurobindo is quoting the mother on this, and she says, "Beauty as a part of spirituality and divine living. Physical things have the divine consciousness underlying them as much as living things. They have an individuality of their own and ought to be properly treated in the right way." And you are doing that, and I hope this peace table continues for many, many years as Golconde has done, and in this wonderful space. You've probably heard this before, but the dream that my father received in 1984 was to make a table for each continent, a symbol of man's aspiration for a creative and beautiful peace, free of political overtones, an expression of love for man, for his fellow man. A rose or lotus placed on it, song sung, each in its own tongue, Zen chants. Sadhu friends from South India congregating, maybe who foresaw we would be here. Monks and others from all over the world who are interested in a higher and deeper consciousness. Enthusiastic contagion would be useful, as peace the world over is uppermost in our consciousness. It must be a joyous peace, not of fear or absence of war. It's a question of surrender. Surrender to the divine consciousness to end in a most beautiful aura of love. My father also envisioned a home for the peace altar as being a great half sphere, perhaps 30 to 45 meters in diameter, sheathed in and out with pale yellow ceramic tile. Does that sound familiar? Set in water to make a complete sphere of unity. That did not come to pass, but the remarkably similar structure of Matra Mandir was built here, and now we have a circular building here to embrace the peace altar here. And Mother, I was also studying the words of the Mother, and she was saying, when the mind is silent, there is peace. And in the peace of all things that are divine can come. Abolish your ego, and peace will reign in you, in the very depths of your being, deep within your heart. The divine presence is always there, luminous and peaceful, full of love and wisdom. It is there so that you may unite with it and may transform you into a luminous and radiant consciousness. There is a positive peace which is not the opposite of conflict, an active peace, contagious, powerful, which controls and calms, which puts everything in order and organizes it. To want what the divine wants, in all sincerity, is the essential condition for peace and joy in life. And it was through the wisdom of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother that this green came to my father and guided his entire life, uniting heaven and earth through the monumental expression of one extraordinary tree manifested in this sacred table of peace. We hope that through continuing his green, peace may become a reality, at least for all who enter this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mira. I take this occasion to wish you a very happy birthday. And only yesterday, I discovered that today is also Jaya's birthday. So this is not exactly how Jaya was planned to spend her birthday, but it's when Chenmai said there are no coincidences. I found this to be beautiful that these two remarkable women who've done so much to manifest this and bring this sense of the sacred to Auroville, that they would share this birthday and that we could honor them together on this day. In closing, I wish to thank the rest of the board of trustees of the Nakashima Foundation for Peace, many dear friends of the Nakashima family, like the Renchlers, who are Quakers and have peace deep in their tradition, that they came and traveled here for this event, along with William Jacob, who's been great help and supportive for the Nakashima Foundation. We thank Bill's help for Kevin Nakashima, who traveled to many countries with his mother Marion, whose memory we also wish to honor today. Kevin also came to Pondicherry for the Mother's Darshan, and as you heard, spent time with Piero discussing the Matrimandir, so Auroville was very close to George Nakashima's heart. Champaklal, who was the attendant to Sri Aurobindo and Mother, came to visit George in New Hope before George's passing. And Champaklal and Mohan Mistry, Mohan Bhai, who's here today, sang at the Altar to Peace at St. John the Divine in New York. I ask that all those present and those viewing this event later work to see that the exchanges among these three sacred tables continue in the coming years, and work for the manifestation of the fourth peace table at the Desmond Tutu Center at Cape Town in South Africa. There have been many Aurovillians who've helped today, and also my friends in Auroville International who are here to celebrate this moment. But Vera is an Aurovillian who traveled and made the tour of all three tables within a relatively few weeks. And she was in St. John the Divine with Ashesh, and then in Moscow, and then now back in Auroville. So we asked her to close this ceremony by reading in Russian the quote from the great Russian saint, St. John of Kronstadt, and ring this large flat bell designed by the Russian bellmaster. And the quote is, "Love peace above all. Love peace as you love the Lord himself. Let nothing be dearer to you than peace
and mutual love.
Возлюби мир превыше всего. Возлюби мир так же, как ты любишь самого Господа. Пусть ничто не будет для тебя дороже мира и взаимной любви.
Take it,
So it is one, each table is one. No, it's slices. And the 6 tables are from one tree. No, actually, two trees. From two trees, and the 6 tables. I used to have some of these tables.